Me and Colleen are going to show you Cal Logsdon's grave. Good God, look at that tree. I'm sorry, you can tell I'm married to him. Look at that goddamn tree. I wonder how many Ricky Woods in that tree. God,
how many what?
Ricky Woods in that tree. I could burn that all winter and have some left over. Okay, so this is one of the oldest cemeteries in the area. And it's famous because of someone that is buried up there. So we're going to start up there. I'm going to turn this off while I'm walking because I'm fat. Nobody needs to hear me breathe. We found it. Okay, so this is the grave of Cal Logsdon. It did have a T in it. You were right. I thought it had a D in it. As you can see, he was hanged in 1872. And there's a massive story behind this man. And I'm going to tell it to you, but I wanted to show you his grave. But I have to admit, you know, you got to be stuck somewhere. This is a pretty cemetery. And these trees are huge.
Well, his aunts testified against him.
Yeah. Oh, it was a whole big ordeal. It was, I mean, they all just wanted to convict him immediately, but there were so many gaps in the investigation that they went heavily on testimony of people that weren't even there, that were just inclined to believe he may have done something, and so they hung him. Hi everybody, MommaLiz here. Thought I'd break the monotony of speaking about the Summer Wells case and actually tell you about a case that took place in my area of Tennessee. Now there was a man in 1872 that was found guilty of a crime that he went to the hanging tree stating he did not do. This man's name was Cal Logsdon. How do I know about this man? Because I went to the elementary school where he was buried just behind the school in the woods. And it was always said, don't go by the woods, Cal Logsdon's in the woods. He's in the graveyard, but he watches the kids from the woods. And I always got the heebie-jeebies from that area when we would go out for recess. So I was always intrigued. It is actually a beautiful cemetery. It has some old growth timber in it that is absolutely gorgeous. It has some of the oldest graves in the area. It has some of the most numerous baby graves that's so sad right after the Civil War, during the turn of the century when people were really unable to maintain their health. Although we had a lot of stillborn and newborn baby deaths in this area, and it's so sad. That is one of the cemeteries that holds the most small gravestones. It's so sad, it breaks my heart. But I went to explore this today with a friend, and we had a great time. So I want to share this video with you, but first I want to tell you the story. This young man's name was Cal Logsdon. He knew a couple of people. One was potentially known to be a female prostitute. They had asked him to accompany him to a man's house. And it's unknown if he was aware that they were actually going to commit a murder that night or not. But when the murder occurred, Cal Logsdon fled back to Kentucky where his father lived. Well, back in that day, they did not think that women were capable of such heinous crimes. So they took a vigilante posse and went after him and went and got him. They allowed the women that actually committed the murder to testify against him, and they found him guilty. And 4 years later, it was decided that he should be hung for his crime. They threw the rope over. The first time they hung him, the rope broke and he fell to the ground. They put another rope on him and they hung him. And after he swung for 5 to 6 times, the rope broke again and he fell to the ground. And before they put another rope on him, he said, "If you hang me again, you will be hanging an innocent man. And if you hang me on this 3rd time and I die, then rains will begin in this area like never before. You will see the Obi River flood as never before. And 100 years from my death, snakes will emerge from my grave, poisonous snakes as never seen on this earth." They hung him. The 3rd time worked. They killed him. And they actually misspelled his name on his tombstone. So I just want to let you all know that. We visited this cemetery. I have video of other tombstones that I think were pretty or informational or interesting. But I also am giving you a tour of his grave. And this is a man that was hung in 1872, and lo and behold, as soon as he was hung, it began raining, and for 3 days the Obi River flooded out of its bed worse than it ever seen in that area. And in 1972, 100 years after his death, they had to actually call in people from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, to remove poisonous snakes that just began emerging from the cemetery for no reason. And because it was so close to the school, they had to call in special biologists to go in, see where the den was, what was going on, and they took so many. They were like, we don't understand. This should have been a den where we should have monitored this for years. Why are they just now coming out? How did these numbers get here? But people around here that know the story, we all had a clue about how they got there. So potentially they hung an innocent man. All because at the time, psychology was not understood. The psychology of killers and murderers and psychopaths and sociopaths, it was not understood. And they did not think women were capable of such a crime. So they just went after this man because they wanted closure. And maybe because I grew up here and I grew up hearing that story, maybe that is why I'm so careful. Maybe it's why I'm so careful about making sure that the courts get all the information, see the information, everything goes through court, and we don't make our minds up too quickly and too hastily. But it's an interesting story nonetheless. I found some amazing graves, some old graves, some beautiful graves. One of the cutest graves I found was a grave dedicated to a wife named Lily Bell. And you could tell someone loved her so much because they gave her such a beautiful grave marker. The old growth timber here is beautiful. Some of the biggest white pines I've ever seen. Some of the biggest maples I've ever seen. They were huge. I tried to do some size comparisons and take some videos for you. And then I had a great surprise when I pulled in my driveway coming home. My son, his wife, and my granddog Che were here to visit me. So here is my little exploration for you, and I hope you enjoy it. If you have questions, put them down below. This is just one of those interesting things from my area. Hope you enjoy it. She said Willie something. What year was that?
1898.
1898.
I don't want to touch it.
This is, somebody needs to make that really nice cleaner that doesn't affect it.
Yeah, I saw
him
on TikTok.
This is Heiser D. Gould. Born 1844, died 1893. This is a really interesting one up here. Oh, 1808, 1882. Charles Rourke. Wow. That's a pretty stone. Somebody needs to reset his stone. It's going to fall.
And then May 17th, and then someone else is on the other side.
That needs to be moved or it's going to fall in a few years. And that does not need to fall. It's too old to fall. I may tell my husband about that and have him come up and move it.
And then there's a bunch of them on the other.
I just found Heiser Gould's son. This is Heiser Gould Jr., World War II veteran. 1924 to 1984. He's pretty recent for this one. Hang on. This tree at some point must have been struck by lightning or something. So neat. Is there anything in there? Watch me get attacked. No, but there's some grass. This is the weirdest one yet.
June 1st, 18. I don't want to touch it.
No, it's growing stuff. They need to be cleaned so bad. I can't make that out. That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I'm just gonna say.
Did they say his lot number?
This is the biggest goddamn lot pond I've ever seen in my whole freaking life. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's gotta be 9 foot, 10 foot around. It's huge. Y'all, that is a white pine. That is a mother freaking white pine. How many board feet of lumber do you think's in that? Huge.
Those guys went to the closest way possible.
I have ever seen in my whole flipping life. It's gorgeous. It's huge. But it's beautiful. Look at that. It's just huge and beautiful. It's just huge and beautiful. Well, if I was little, you could climb that sucker and build a fort. Millardhurst, 1851 to 1918. Thou shalt what? Guide me with thy counsel, and afterward receive me in glory. I really want something snarky on my gravestone, but it's just because I'm a snarky person. I'm just so impressed with how quiet and pretty this is right in the middle of the city. With all these big honking trees. And how old some of the graves are. But this is my favorite. This is my favorite. And it belonged to Lily Bell, wife of D.H. Beatty. 1872 to 1924. Lily Bell. Isn't that cute? I'm just in love with the trees. They're huge. Is my granddog is my Jogga Jogga Jay. What are you doing, Chicken? What are you doing, Chicken? What are you doing, Chicken?